Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can, and welcome to Porch Matters. Hi folks, my name is Terry Cagle. As always, I am coming to you live from my back porch. Thank you very much for clicking on that play button to listen to this show. Hopefully, you like what you hear. Just want to mention that I just launched our very own public Facebook group. It's called Porch Matters Podcast. Since it's a public group and you are listening, please join the group. I would love to have the opportunity to have some discussions with you. All I ask is you keep it respectful. Just want to thank everyone again for listening and subscribing and spreading the word. I really appreciate you. This is episode 4. We are giving politics a much-needed break for a while, and we're going to talk about some other things. On this episode, we have a little bit of a discussion on graphic novels. I also ask some questions, and we do a little bit of deep thinking. I really hope you enjoy this episode.
Okay, go boy, 100 pipers are calling. From hollow to hollow, this shit will make you blind.
I sure am glad the record button's already hit. Jason, how in the heck are you, buddy? How's your week, man?
It's been good. Been very good.
What's going on?
Well, my usual, working, trying to survive the savage heat. Suffered a little heat exhaustion this week. Missed half of a day of work because of that. And,
You got too hot, didn't you?
I did. I got too hot and wasn't getting enough sleep. And it just put the old 2-piece and a biscuit on me.
Feeling any better?
Yeah, feeling a lot better. Got a little bit of rest, a little bit of sleep, and I've been having some problems with my electrolytes and sodium being too low, so had to up that, and doing good.
Low sodium and electrolytes being low, it ain't going to give you the COVID, is it?
Well, it could be a contributing factor, I would imagine, if my immune system gets weak and I get around someone that's spreading it.
How's your breathing been since you've been having to wear a mask all the time outside in that heat?
I don't have to wear a mask outside. That's only inside.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't bother me because we've been wearing masks for a couple of years. When it's dusty, we have the things that go over your neck to keep the sun off your neck, and then when it gets dusty, we just pull them up over our mouth and nose to keep the dust and the allergens.
Oh, so that explains why you're not a redneck anymore.
Absolutely. I have found a way around that.
Oh, so you've disavowed your own kind.
I don't know if they ever were my own kind.
Well, fine then. Be that way.
It depends on your definition of redneck.
Oh, that's another topic for another show, sir.
There you go.
Melissa, how are you? I think I just said, hi, you. Let me try that again.
How you?
Melissa, how are you, and how has your week been?
I'm pretty good. I'm exhausted. I've been having to work 6 days a week, and it's usually get up, go to work, and then come home and pretty much pass out. I've been exhausted pretty much all week. And then yesterday, I didn't think for a little while I was going to have to go to work. The other lady that runs the run before me, she had to go to the doctor for a leg. Her leg's been bothering her. So I picked up her run. I got home yesterday at about 5 o'clock just to find out that I had a wedding party that I had to go to. And Elena dragged me along for that one.
A little short notice, ain't it?
Well, she'd been talking about going to it. She knew she was going to do her hair, the bride's hair, and I knew that was coming too. But I didn't know. Well, there was a discussion between the two of them about how many guests were coming because of the COVID, and Elena had told her, if you need to cut me off the list, it's fine. I understand. It's fine. Then the lady got in for the appointment, and I was already under this understanding that we weren't going to go. And she already knew that I had to work. And the lady came in for her appointment, and they were talking about it. And she just, I guess, gave her a look and said, "You're going to come, right?" And she caved, and she said, "Well, yeah." So because she decided to go, I had to go too. And today was her 13-year-old's birthday party. I don't know if y'all know what it's like to be around a group of 12 and 13-year-old kids. It's freaking exhausting. So, I mean, it was fun, though, and they had fun. Grace had fun. She got a cake. One of her favorite movies is It, new one. She's okay with the older one, but she loves the new one. Her cousin Chloe had made her a cake that looks like the cast that one of the kids wears, and it was signed by one person. It said loser on it, and he put a red V in there to put lover. So she made a cake that looked like that hand. It was awesome.
Being around a group of 13-year-olds like that has drove many of people to alcoholism.
The place we had the party at was like an arcade, bowling alley mix, but it has a bar there too. And I kept looking over there like, But I wanted to be responsible and to be of any help that I could, so I stayed away from it. The whole time we were there, we had 2 cigarettes the whole time we were there, and I'm a smoker. And then I was out of cigarettes, so my stress level was going up because, I didn't know what it was like anymore, but it was exhausting. But everybody had fun. We all played games, we bowled, and got bored with it quick. I didn't even think they all finished a game. So they had 2 hours of bowling, and they didn't even finish it.
Their attention span wasn't long enough to finish a bowling game?
There was 8 kids on one bowling lane, and they
Jesus.
talked more than anything. Yeah, they talked more than anything, but then they got quickly bored, and then they went and played video games. We bowled till the time was up because, it was paid for, so I didn't want to let it go to waste.
Right.
But I never had so many kids ask me questions about cake in my life.
Why were they asking so many questions about cake?
What kind of frosting is this? What are the fingers made of? What kind of frosting is this? Is that chocolate cake? I was like, I didn't make the cake. I don't know. So I kept having to look over Chloe and go, what kind of icing is this? How do you think I should cut this? Because she done washed her hands of it. She was like, you stick them in, you stick the handles in, and you just do it because I don't want to do it no more. I'm like, okay, I got this. And we just got home maybe 10 minutes before we started recording. So it's been long. My days have been busy.
Our topic tonight is going to be talking about graphic novels. And we came across this article from parents.com, talked about why you should encourage your child's love of graphic novels. And I thought it was very interesting. And me, myself, I grew up reading graphic novels. Jason, what about you? Did you grow up listening or reading anything as far as graphic novels concerned?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Had a big impact on me.
What about you, Melissa?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We talk about how they ought to encourage your child's love. Just, I think it's a very good thing. Number one, like I just mentioned earlier, I grew up reading them. I also grew up reading comic books. A lot of people assume that graphic novels and comics are the same, but that's not the case. You can take this comparison, and it explains it the best that I have come up with, or anybody else has come up with for that matter. Take a TV show that you like and then compare a TV show to a movie, okay? A TV show only has a snippet of the story most of the time. It's usually a very short story. There's usually a continuation from one episode to the next, complete out a season. Versus with a movie, it's usually an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, and it usually tells more of a complete story. That's the comparison between a comic book and a graphic novel. There have been several comic book storylines that have been turned into graphic novels, but there's also been a lot of graphic novels that's been written just strictly about comic book characters and everything as well. DC and Marvel have done a lot of them. Some of DC's graphic novels are Watchmen, All-Star Superman, The Dark Knight Returns, Wonder Woman, Gods and Mortals. Another very popular one was V for Vendetta. And another ultra-popular one was the Flashpoint series. With Marvel, and these are just some examples, Civil War, Civil War II, X-Men Dark Phoenix Saga, X-Men Days of Future Past, Daredevil Born Again, and Elektra Assassin. That's not all of them, but that's just a few snippets. And DC and Marvel are not the only sources for great graphic novels. Here's just a snippet preview of some of the ones that are coming out in 2020 that has nothing to do with comics whatsoever. Legend of the Fire Princess, Harleen, one about David Bowie, Stardust Ray Guns, and Moonage Daydream. Snapdragon, Heartstopper, Go with the Flow, I could keep going. But graphic novels are becoming a whole lot more popular now than what they were whenever we were kids, and there's a lot more of them to choose from. Jason, you were sharing with me a little bit earlier. As you like to point out a lot on this show, you were older than me. Not by much, but you are older than me. You were...
In dog years.
Yeah. I've got more mileage on me than you do, arguably, but, you're older than me.
You can look at us and tell that.
I know, right? you were sharing some of your experiences and everything growing up as a teenager back in the 80s. What was your share with the audience, what you were sharing with me?
My first introduction to graphic novels was in the late 80s, around 87, 88. And a friend of mine was a collector of graphic novels and kind of introduced me to them. 86 to 87 is considered kind of in the graphic novel genre, kind of a banner year, because in that 1 year, you had The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller's interpretation of Batman. You had
a great novel, by the way.
The great novel, The Watchmen, which has been a cult classic and has gotten more attention through the film and television series.
It was a fantastic one. If anybody hasn't read that one, take the time, overlook the movie, overlook the TV series, go back and actually read that graphic novel. It was fantastic. Fantastic storytelling.
And the one that was the most critically acclaimed of those three was by an author named Art Spiegelman, and it was called Mouse. And Mouse is spelled M-A-U-S.
Yes.
And basically, Art Spiegelman, in real life, his father was a Holocaust survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did a graphic novel in which the Jews that are experiencing the Holocaust are depicted as mice. The Nazis are depicted as cats, and the Polish people his father was in Auschwitz in Poland in that particular concentration camp, were depicted as pigs. And he kind of went through a telling of his father relating to him his experiences in World War II and within the concentration camp. And of course, the illustrations were mice and pigs and cats. And it just really got my attention, man. Like no other comic. And I've been reading comic books since I was in second grade. But nothing got my attention like that did. And, it was relatable in a way because I could see my grandfather and some of the things that his father said and the way that he acted. Little things that you wonder, well, why was grandma and grandpa, why were they funny about this or that? Well, there are always reasons, and a lot of it comes from experiences they have. So it was like a door opening to me as far as, okay, you can take something that is usually complicated and maybe over-explained, and you can break it down into a way that even children can understand and see the tragedy, the triumph, all of something. And then, this was within a very short span of time because I would stay with my friend a good bit. I went to The Dark Knight. And, there were so many different things in that novel that kind of opened, because like you, I'd seen Batman my whole life. Grew up with the Super Friends and the old 60s show, but I had never seen it like this in my lifetime. And some of the representation of Batman in that, and some of the grittiness, I thought, my God, I can't even believe they're putting this in a comic book. This isn't right. This is just not right. But it opened a door of perception for me to what, a character that you grew up with and I grew up with and Melissa grew up with, that we thought we knew, a whole different door of perception opened up. So that's kind of my, I don't mean to belabor, I apologize, but that's kind of my experience with graphic novels.
Yeah. Melissa, what about you? What are your experiences with graphic novels?
Unfortunately, when I was a kid, I didn't do a whole lot of reading. I wish I had, but my delve into graphic novels didn't really start until in my adulthood. One of my favorites was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes.
I love that. I love that series. And I was excited when they put it out on film. It didn't do as good as I'd hope it would when it came out on film. But it's very intriguing, and it's very, and I wished as a kid that I was able to do this because I had a very illustrated mind. Okay, I saw a lot of pictures and a lot of stuff all the time. My brain was always doing this. So it's really a break. I would suppose it would have been such a big break for me. Everybody looks back at their childhood and wishes this or that, but it's a very exciting place to be because, one, you get to look into somebody else's mind and what they see. And then you get to see things like, well, for instance, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and these people that have these extraordinary abilities that all come together and they all fight crime. And it's like, I wish, I actually had these people in the world, because it's a really cool thing to look up to.
Right.
These people do good things. They have these abilities, but they use it for the power of good. And it's everybody wanted to be a superhero. Everybody still, they feel how they look for reasons or look for ways that they can't be a hero in some ways in real life. And it's fun to look at it and exaggerate an ability and then put them in hero form and look and say, that's the kind of thing I wish I could do. And all these characters that just kind of play together make it great. And the one I found recently, you were talking about V for Vendetta. That's one of my favorite movies of all time that I've ever seen. Uh-huh. And again, that one didn't get a whole lot of credit. I thought it needed more credit than what it got, but it's just an amazing thing. And that's the series that I actually want to pick up and read as far as graphic novels go.
I think if you read the series, you'll enjoy the graphic novel and everything better than the movie. I love the movie, but I don't think that the movie did the graphic novel justice.
Well, see, unfortunately,
as is always my stance.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for me, I didn't find that out again until my adulthood. I was like, man, I really wish that I'd have read the book before this, but it kind of spoils it for me. That happens because a lot of people, you're one of them, will read the book, then the movie will come out, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they screwed it up on film. But I'm like, I love the ability to be able to enjoy the film and then go back and let the book fill in the blanks that the film left out. So I love to do that now. And I didn't figure that out till my adulthood. I was like, man, I wish I'd been doing this my whole life.
well, not to go down a huge rabbit hole, but yeah, that is my stance. A lot of times on these movies, to me, they don't do the comics justice. There is one movie that I have seen in my entire life that actually done the book justice. One. Guess which one it was?
Tell me it's not Superman.
Nope.
No? Okay. What?
The Godfather.
Oh, man.
Jason, have you ever read the book? I know you've seen the movie. Have you ever read the book?
I have not read all of the book, but I do know they had Mario Puzo was involved in the film to keep it authentic.
I have the book here. I have actually read the book twice. And y'all know I'm not a huge reader of novels.
Mm-hmm.
I have read the book twice. I will let you borrow my copy, and you will see just how close that movie is to the book.
Well, you and I have talked about this before, and I told you I just couldn't get into The Godfather. It sounds like a crime because everybody speaks up about The Godfather like it's one of the best films ever made. And then you're like, well, the book is better. And just because it's such a big deal. And I know it's a big deal for people who love it. I'm going to pick it up. While I'm riding along in my truck, I'm going to put that audiobook on and I'm going to listen to it. And then I might be able to watch the movie.
Well, let me know when it is that you're going to do that, and I will make sure not to call you that day. That way I don't interrupt.
All right. I'll do that.
Moving on, I personally think on this article that it makes a lot of points and it makes a lot of sense. And if need be, I will be more than willing to share this on our Facebook page so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But if in between now and between time, it's on parents.com. You can Google it. With me, and like I said, I'm not a huge reader at all. It's hard for me to sit there and take a book. And if it don't catch my attention, I have to basically be able to tune everything out and just totally get sucked into the story, or I lose interest. A lot of the books that I have read are about people and things that I am highly interested in. I read a lot of wrestling autobiographies. Ric Flair's was one of them. I literally read it in about a day and a half. I could not put it down. I got into the Left Behind series back in the day because that story just sucked me in. To me, it has to be one of those where I just don't want to put it down. However, whenever I look at a graphic novel, when I look at comic books, there's a picture there. It helps me to be able to visualize what the story is. It's like the pictures bring the story more to life, and it helps to suck me in. So I find personally that it's easier for me to read graphic novels, and especially because, again, it's about something that I'm passionate about. Melissa, what about you? Do you have the same? Are you basically the same as me on that instance?
Yeah, well, see, you and I grew up in a more sports type of background.
Yes.
The reason why people like in this article is so important. You and I can pick up a book and we can visualize it. That's no problem, and we can see the pictures also that are on the page, and it helps. This is why I regret that I didn't pick this stuff up, because while kids' brains are developing, pick up more than you and I ever will, because it's very impressionable. It's you're reading these books about heroes, even villains. You know, there was Spawn that was out there for a while. That was really big for a long time. Even that, you know, that was this guy from. I mean, he was basically back from hell, but he still was a hero, but it's like a dark hero.
Right.
But with these kids, it's the impressions that they get, and I think it's one of those things where it helps build their morale as they're growing up. And because you got all these people that are doing good things and being heroes, and they get the picture to go along with it, help their mind mold around it a little bit better. And then it's not just comics. I mean, that's why they have to go to school and on some stuff, because kids pick up on a lot of stuff better than we ever could. If I start taking a guitar lesson right now, at the same time a 6-year-old starts taking a guitar lesson, he's going to surpass me by far, because it's just pick up things like that. It becomes normal to them a lot quicker than it would to me.
You brought up an interesting topic right there. It was always good people trying to do good things. And you also brought up how we grew up in a sports world. A lot of my life lessons came from a sports field, either a baseball field, basketball court, or a football field. A lot of my life lessons came. So not everybody is like that. Not everybody is into sports. So maybe some people got some of their life lessons from a comic book. Maybe some people got some of their life lessons from a graphic novel. You know, some people get some of their life lessons from music. You know, Jason, have you got any thoughts about that? You grew up a little bit different than what we did, and that's why I'm saying. Did you get any of your life lessons or anything from any kind of graphic novels or comic books?
Yeah, I would say so. I played one sport. I played basketball, and there were good times and bad times. I guess as far as physical activity, I was in karate for about 4 years.
Right.
And that really means more to me personally than any sport I ever played. It was very, but it was less team oriented, more individual oriented. Right. And you know, of course, as in anything, you know, when you're the small kid, you have to deal with the big kids.
Right.
But I would say from a young age, I did identify with some of the characters in graphic novels. For me, the villains were more interesting, and not because I thought they were good or because I was rooting for them, and not the ones who were just who were evil in a way that just seemed very like, okay, I woke up today and I'm evil and I'm going to be evil forever, and that's not interesting to me. What's interesting is someone who has suffered and it has affected their view of society, of life. And, you know, as you've said many times, the most interesting, dangerous villains usually think that they're doing the right thing.
Those are 9 out of 10 the best villains, because they think they don't know they're the villain. Exactly.
And so that really kind of, I think, colored my view on people. And it's rarely simple. And like I said, I get a lot of that from the graphic novels. The good guy is not always good. The bad guy is not always bad. And there are issues in between. So, yeah, I think that had a big impact on me. And language, I remember very, very vividly, as a second grader, I was reading G.I. Joe comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading. I wanted to read one to my mom because I was still very young, and that was something we did. She would read to us, and we would have to read. So I remember reading, and I remember in the comic, part of the comic took place in Libya, and they had, of course, Libya and Tripoli and things. In my life, at that point, I'd never heard of Libya, Tripoli, or any of the terms they were using.
Right.
But it ingrained in me language that I wasn't used to, and concepts and places that I had no exposure to. So I think I got more as far as just language skills from comic books and graphic novels than from anything else I can think of.
With me personally, whenever I was growing up, y'all remember how school was. You had certain books that you had to read and things like that. There's a lot of those books where I couldn't get into it. Could not. I thought that they were so boring.
Oh, yeah. It put me to sleep so bad.
I couldn't. Sorry. I read just enough to get by. If I didn't read it, I learned just enough about what was going on to get by. It's not for a lack of trying necessarily. I did try, but I couldn't get into it. But with graphic novels and everything, like I mentioned earlier, they brought the story more to life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another good thing about kids being encouraged to read them. If they're into it like that, and most of the graphic novels that are out there, they are good. Now, there are some suspect. Common sense.
Yeah.
Okay? Parents, do your thing. If you approve of it, what does it matter what the kids are reading as long as they're reading?
I just wanted a point you made about how you were more interested and enjoyed reading graphic novels over some of the atypical reading we were all assigned. I'd like to read a few points, if I could, out of the article from parents pertaining just to what you just said, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, and I'm paraphrasing, but on average, there are more complex words per 1,000 words written in graphic novels than in children's books or even adult books, according to a University of Oregon study. That got my attention.
Yeah.
Also, according to another study, that kids had better reading comprehension and enjoyed reading more, vis-a-vis what you just said, through reading graphic novels or by reading graphic novels, and it encouraged reluctant readers to read. I think that is absolutely huge. So it shows that it's not exactly what children read, but how they read and how often that will improve their literacy in the long run.
I mean, what's better for a kid, reading a graphic novel or playing a video game? Melissa,
there you go.
Go ahead.
I had a best friend growing up, and me and him couldn't be from different backgrounds. I mean, he was basically considered the nerd of the class, but he was my best friend. He was a genius. He was very, very smart. And he did a lot of different things. Like he'd like to take stuff, put stuff back together. He had no interest in sports whatsoever. So his parents, of course, didn't make him do it. So we couldn't come from different backgrounds. One of the things we would do when we would hang out, one of our parents would come pick the other one up, and he always took us to the comic book store, which was odd for me that I didn't get into it more than I think I should have, considering he was my best friend. He would sit there and he would go into detail. Now, we were in third grade, and he would say words to me that I had to ask what meant. He was very, very intellectual like that, but he liked to read. And his favorite thing to do was to grab comic books and read them. And he broke them down so fast, and he would point stuff out to me. He was really, really smart. And that was something he liked to do for pleasure, but it was his favorite thing to do. So the difference is, I'm not saying I was a dumb third grader, but I was more average as a third grader. But his favorite thing was these comic books and graphic novels and stuff, and he liked to sit down and explain stuff to me.
Right.
And so I would be interested in hearing him tell me about it more than picking it up and doing it myself. I just was waiting for him to tell me a story. But he would show me the pictures, kind of like a teacher would in front of the class, show that it was so much more interesting. But like I said, he was basically considered genius level because he liked to read so much. But that was his favorite content, was graphic novels and comic books.
Right.
So I was just, furthering your point that I had a personal experience with that.
This podcast is brought to you by Anchor. It is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free to use, which means you don't have to put out any money to get on this platform and start your own podcast. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Jason, what's the worst job you've ever had?
Oh, man.
While you're thinking, one of my worst jobs would probably be either the 2 weeks that I was actually a telemarketer. True story.
That's good.
I was a telemarketer for about 2 weeks in the city of Summerton.
Oh, my God.
Thank God baseball season rolled around.
Was it like at a phone bank?
We went into the building and we sat down. All of us had little desks. We all had little scripts we had to read off, and we all had numbers that we had to call, right? I think.
Oh, my God.
I think ours was for some police fund in Virginia. But, yeah, I did that for 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Either that or I was a delivery driver for DHL.
I didn't know that.
I did that for about 2 months.
Okay.
The boss ended up calling me saying, I don't think this is working out. And I said, you know what? Me either. What was your worst job?
Let me go back. Around 2009, at the time when the Great Recession was really starting to show up big time.
Yeah.
Our business was on the ropes, so I really had no income for several months, and I had not been hired. No, it was 2007. I'm sorry. I had not been hired by the sheriff's department yet. That came in 2008.
Yep.
So
a month after I got hired.
That is correct. So I was looking for something else. So I thought, well, you know what? Someone had tipped me off to working as a security guard for a coal company. I thought, well, that'll be kind of cool. That'll be neat. So I did it, and I got a uniform and everything. And they put me over not too far from where you live, over at that strip mine, not the one on the bridge side, but the other side.
You talking about over there by the washer?
Yes. And they put me in a little building with no electricity, and I was there. I was third shift, and it was cold, and my phone did not work. That was before iPhones, so I couldn't entertain myself that way.
Signal right in there is terrible.
Yeah, the signal was terrible. It was the most boring job I have ever undertaken. In fact, I found some things that I could kind of lay out on the floor, and I would just lay down like Dracula and think, well, maybe I'll sleep through some of this, but you couldn't sleep because it was night, and you never knew who was going to walk up on you. So,
especially down there.
Especially down there. So after about a week or so of that, I decided one Saturday night, I'm just not going to go. I'm just not going to go. They're going to be fine. I'm out. And I think I lasted a total maybe of 2 weeks.
How did you enjoy going across that old bridge?
I didn't like it at all.
It's creepy, ain't it?
It was very creepy. The whole thing was creepy.
Yeah.
The whole thing was creepy.
I've been across that bridge a time or two, and it just feels like one wrong move and you're done, because those planks aren't that wide. You've got to hold that steering wheel real still.
You really do. It's just not cool. That was the worst job I've ever had, man. I look back on it now and I think, what the heck was I thinking? Well, I know what I was thinking. I got to make money and support my family. But, that was just, God, that was awful. And I didn't care. Usually I would have a little bit of, well, I hate to quit this and but no, I didn't hate to quit that at all. I was thankful.
Yeah.
Thankful to be out of it.
Melissa, what was the worst job that you've ever had?
It's a toss-up on this. I also have done the telemarketing thing. I did that for about 2 weeks. It started off bad. I should have known that this was not going to work out. I'm, first of all, not a behind-the-desk type of person. Second of all, when I went in to get when I set the interview to go in, they tried to tell me that I have already made an appointment to have an interview, and I didn't go to the first one. I was like, no, I promise you, this is the first time I've ever called you. I would like to work there. I would like to at least, the job interview. And she proceeded to chew me a new one, thinking the whole time that I have already made an appointment, didn't show up. She's like, well, you can come this time, but if you don't this time, don't bother calling again. I should have just called it no right there. That was horrible. But it was selling timeshares. It was kind of a big pyramid scheme, I guess. I didn't like that one so much.
You wouldn't happen to be selling timeshares for Blue Green, was you?
Yeah, that was it. Right out of Kodak, Tennessee.
My family actually bought a timeshare from Blue Green.
Well, it wasn't from me. I can tell you that. I didn't make a single sale. Yeah. But then the next one I had, it was 7 days a week. And it was like 10 to 12 hours a day sometimes. You got 8-hour shifts too, but it was all the time. The only holidays you had was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and July 4th, Thanksgiving Day. Places shut down for at least a few days. There was no vacation here. It was 7 days a week, pretty much all year round. I worked through a temp agency with them. And they called me one day. I had to come down with the flu. I actually had the flu this time. And I had a doctor's note and everything. When they called and told me not to come back, they said I had been absent or late 35 times since I started that job, which was wrong. It was a lie. That was not true. I promise you that wasn't true. Because if that were the case, I would have already been fired. Well, then it comes to turn out the girl that called just didn't want me and the person I was with to come back. And everybody else thought we just abandoned. So it was one big misunderstanding. They called and they were like, well, one of the people said, well, we just thought you decided not to come back. And I was like, oh, we were called and told not to come back. Nobody could figure out who called us. And I told them who it was. Like, it was Brittany. She called. She was part of the staffing people. Well, the person, her boss, didn't know that that's what she had done. It was one crazy mix-up.
What did you do at that job?
Well, it was called quality control. It was like a second measure of quality control, so it was just as hard as any other laborist job. And we had to bring in pallets full of torque converters. We made torque converters at that place. My part was to examine them inside and out the best I could visually to see if it would pass the specs to go in to be in production, because they were in trouble with Ford and all these other places because they kept getting bad product. Well, our job was to inspect them visually. So we had to go through, we went through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them a day, just bending down, picking them up. And they're like anywhere between 20 and 40 pounds a piece. And then we had to shove them away. Yeah, it was tough. It was hot. That was one of the jobs that I actually lost a lot of weight, just being very, very physical with it. I've had a lot of doozy jobs. That one wasn't so much of a doozy. It wouldn't have been so bad if it wasn't 7 days a week. But, and yeah, then I was also a temp. So
yeah. Who were your heroes in real life? I'm gonna answer that one first while y'all think about it. My heroes are my dad, my mom, my grandma, and my grandpa. My dad and my grandpa are no longer here, but they made me into the man that I am. I really do appreciate and value them. Even though they're not here, I still feel like I'm trying to live up to the example that they set. My grandmother, I have told her repeatedly and told a lot of other people that I wish I had half of her heart. That woman is so iron-willed and so strong. And my mother is a lot like my grandmother. My mother is my best friend now, and I love her infinitely. Words can't describe how much I love my mother. I am a very proud mama's boy. And if anybody don't like that, tough. Jason, what about you? Who are your heroes in real life?
Much like yourself, I'm fortunate. I've had great parents and great family. I'd say probably people that had a big influence on me. My mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, was a very tough lady. She raised my mother after my father was killed in 1961, put herself through nursing school on the GI Bill because he fought in World War II. And this was just a tough, hardworking lady, but she kept a heart about her and a concern for other people. And she informed a lot of the ways that I think, I guess socially and politically, come from her. She worked at one of the local nursing homes back in the late 70s, early 80s, and tried to get a union started because there was a lot of corruption taking place and the staff was being really treated poorly. And of course, that's not an easy thing to do. And she found herself getting fired, and everybody was scrambling to take care of themselves. So, but I just admire her. I really admire her. And I had an uncle that if anybody in the family needed anything, if they needed help for anything, it may be something mechanical or what have you, he was the guy they called, and he was always there. He was always willing to help, and just again, a very hardworking man who really did better than he should have in life because he had ambition and he was willing to work out, do what he needed to do to get there. I guess those two, and then I had a karate instructor for about 4 years. He was a black reverend from Inslee, the Reverend Paul Callaghan. I guess I started when I was 11 or 12, something along there. And he just made such an impression on me because, you know, he was what we would call the sensei over the whole school. But he acted with such class and humility. And even just a little punk kid like me, he made me feel like someone. Really treated me well and just had a great way of treating people and acting. So I would say he would be right up there with them as far as affecting my views on people.
Yeah, I also had an uncle like that. I still got him. I'm still blessed with it. He'll bend over backwards to help anybody. That's just the way he is. He's got what you call a servant's heart.
Right.
Melissa, what about you, hon? Who are your heroes in real life?
Well, my grandparents were definitely my heroes for the longest time. The love that they had for each other and the bickering that we got to watch, and you know how they loved each other was just beautiful. My granddaddy, bless his heart, he couldn't retire correctly. One of those men that he's met his requirements for retirement. He retired. He went home. He did all the cleaning. He did a lot of home repairs. He did this in about 3 months, and then he went back to work. He literally had to be knocked down so hard that he couldn't get back up in order to make him stop working. And my grandmother, she just had the heart of an angel. She loved everybody, but if she didn't like you, you knew it, and there was a reason. There was a good reason. And then when I was a kid, Pat Summitt was one of my biggest heroes. She's was the coach for the Tennessee Volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got to meet her while I was in middle school. She portrayed everything I thought she would portray of herself in person. You see all this, how she worked on the court, or speeches that she would give, or the things that she would say to people. She was like that in real life too. She was just really motivated and determined to give everybody every opportunity there was to succeed. But she was one of the people that was pushing you to do it too. She was a really amazing woman. I actually cried when she died. So
I never got to meet her, but I was always fascinated by her, and I always had a lot of respect for her. Mm-hmm. What a woman and what a coach.
Yeah, she was a truly amazing being. I really see her in the society of it. She was actually a good true hero of that day's society. She just lived her life the same way on camera she did off camera, and vice versa. She was just an amazing person.
Who is your favorite hero of fiction?
I can't pick right now. It's Captain America right now. I don't know why.
Captain America.
Yeah.
Why is it Captain America?
The character of Steve Rogers was a very honest, humble person, very motivated in morale. Everything he did was, this is right or wrong, no matter if it's against the law or law, like a lot of heroes. But the way that he stood up about it is like nobody could corrupt that man ever. Right. He would just be like, no, that's wrong, and I'm strong enough to tell you otherwise. That was the way that he made his hero into the person that he is. He wasn't just Captain America. Captain America is Steve Rogers. It's not just a persona. That's who he is all the time. That's why I like him so. That's why I like him so much.
Jason, who is your favorite hero of fiction? I know who your favorite villain of fiction is, but who is your favorite hero?
Well, this is going to sound strange, I guess, because it's not like really you only see him one time in one book, and then in a movie that was really big. And I know I talk about this movie a lot. Everybody knows it's my favorite movie. Chief Brody in Jaws, one of my favorites.
What do you mean one of? That is your favorite movie.
Yeah, it is my favorite movie. But Chief Brody, he's probably my favorite hero of fiction.
Why is that? Because there might actually be somebody listening to this who has been under a rock, or like my former podcast partner on Two Guys in the Podcast, Brandon Nash, shout out to you if you're listening to this, who has never seen the movie Jaws.
Okay. What? If they haven't, then God bless them. But the things to me that really just made me love the guy. He's a family man. And he really tries very hard to be a good man.
Right.
He's not looking for glory or for the big. He moves to a small town where he thinks his family will be safe, where he thinks it'll be a better life. And then he finds himself faced with extraordinary circumstances. He's just a normal guy, a good guy who is up against something that is absolutely incredible. And the way he treats other people and conducts himself, and you never get the feeling this guy is some kind of superhero or he's some kind of fearless just whatever. No, he's just a good man who's trying to deal with something that is just this overwhelming, a force of nature, literally.
Right.
And he keeps his humor about him and his concern for others and his humility, but he's also brave. So, there are a lot of reasons that I kind of, as far as fiction goes, I guess he'd be right there for me.
My answer is very predictable, because y'all know me. But those of you that might be listening that don't know me, my favorite hero of fiction is and will always be Superman. I grew up watching Superman. I remember watching the old cartoons from back in the day. They resurfaced. I got a video of it. I was one of those kids that used to try and run around with a towel on my back, acting like a cape. Luckily, I didn't jump off of a house to see if I could fly, but Superman was always my end-all be-all. That and He-Man. I was a huge He-Man fan whenever I was a kid.
By the power of Grayskull.
Yes.
Well, I also like the Wonder Woman, too, so they just kind of fall hand in hand.
Yes, I do. So,
Tony Stark.
What about Tony Stark?
As far as if we're going comic book characters, other than Doctor Doom, who I think is the greatest character in comics, I guess Tony Stark will be right behind him.
What makes you think Tony Stark is right behind Doctor Doom?
Because I think you mean why he isn't in front or why Doom is in front?
Why do you put Tony Stark so high? Because I know what you think about Doctor Doom. You think Doctor Doom is the end-all be-all.
Oh, he is. He's the best character in comics.
What puts Tony Stark at number 2?
Because he's a very flawed individual. And over time, he starts to recognize his own flaws and tries to correct them. I kind of like his attitude a little bit, and the way he carries himself, which a lot of that portrayal comes from Robert Downey Jr., who's just done a masterpiece with it. He kind of, through his own ingenuity and ability, kind of produces his own superpower. And I think that's kind of cool.
This next question is going to be very deep, so I just want y'all to prepare yourself. If you were to die tomorrow, what little thing would you regret not doing? It's deep, ain't it?
Yeah, it is. I was just thinking there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to do in my childhood that I haven't got to do yet. For instance, one was open up, I've said this before, I think, but open up a foster care facility, take care of those kids myself. I mean, of course, I'd have to have a lot of money to do that, and I have to really be financially stable. That was one thing I really wanted to do, was leave some kind of imprint like that. It's small in comparison, but it's so big to me. One thing I wanted to do before I died.
What about you, Joyce?
I guess the thing I would regret is not taking more chances when I was younger. I could have done some things when I was in my early 20s, but I felt like I needed to earn some money and kind of get stable. And, because I had worked hard and done without for so long, I just couldn't see doing it any longer. Where I think if I had been willing to take some more chances and take some opportunities that were offered, things would have been very different. Or at least I think I would have been glad I tried it.
I'm in the same boat. I've used this example several times, but there's people that you've seen those little cliffs and stuff that it's got water underneath it, and you see some people that just jump off without even thinking about it, and then you see other people that stand up there at the top and they're scared to do it. I've always been the person standing up there at the top saying, yeah, but on a lot of different things, you need to go and do this, you need to do that, right? Yeah, but I've said yeah but pretty much all my life, and that's something that I've got to work on. I'm trying to push myself to get out of my comfort zone and to get a lot uncomfortable, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes great sense. I think that's where growth is.
Yeah, I do too. You can't grow as an individual or as a person, and unless you get uncomfortable.
That's correct.
I'm trying my best to get uncomfortable. It's a slow process. I'm still catching myself saying, yeah, but a lot. But I'm trying. And I think that's all we can do, right?
It is. You know, you have to, and a lot of stuff, a lot of things don't occur to you till you've actually experienced some life and gotten through, and then you start to understand more who you are instead of just what the concept of who you are is.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Well, to use a football term, a lot of players will tell you, you don't learn near as much from a win as you do a loss. The losses that occur, those are the ones that stick with you. Melissa, you played sports. You know what I'm talking about. Jason, I think you do. The losses that go along, those are the ones that you beat yourself up over. Those are the ones that you mull over in your head. What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently to put us over the line just that much more quicker than the other person? I think part of my problem is I hate to lose. That's why I say yeah, but a lot. I think that's what it is. There again, personal growth. You know, sometimes you got to lose to be able to win.
That's true.
I don't like to look at things like a failure, but I like to look at things like how can I solve it? That's my mentality towards things. Is how can I solve this for the day?
Right.
I just can't accept that there's no way. Anybody who knows me, like, no, but there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to fix this. I can't help it. That's just how I am. I can't accept the fact that, there's no way. I'm like, no, there's got to be. There's always a way.
I think loss and mistakes and regrets can be a double-edged sword, because I think you can learn from them if you'll accept them and really try to understand them. But then you have to move on from that and try to push what you've learned. I think it's easier more often than not to let them just hang back there in the background, and then you forget about them for a while. Then they come back up again, and it becomes something that weighs you down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the real battle, is keeping it from being just a 20-year-old mistake that's still beating you down.
Yeah, sooner or later you gotta move on.
You got to forgive yourself.
Yes, sir.
You got to get to where, I mean, we spend so much time trying and learning to try to forgive others that I think we forget sometimes we got to be able to forgive ourselves too.
Yeah, that part of that is, a lot of people go to other people for advice. It's really easy to give advice from another person. That person is really easy to give that person that advice, because ideally it's sound and great advice, but a lot of people don't even follow the advice that they give others.
Right.
And that's
you got no skin in the game, because
right.
It's not gonna hurt you. So you can give the best advice in the world, but it's not gonna affect you either way. So you're right. You're exactly right.
Well, see, when I was in college, I was in a psychology class, and it stuck with me all year, and it stuck with me well into my adulthood and my driving career and stuff. And she said, if you want to be a psychologist, you got to figure out what's wrong with you first and fix it. And of course, me at that age, I was mad. I was like, why has it got to be something wrong with me in order for me to be a psychologist, blah, blah, blah. And it stuck with me for a long time. And then it just hit me just like a few years ago that it's really hard for people to understand themselves and actually follow advice they know is right, because they would give it to somebody else. It's really hard for them to accept them for who they are. If they keep trying to shove that self-acceptance, that's the word. So there's no self-acceptance, and that's very, very rare to find. And people are like, I can accept my flaws just fine now, and I can tell you everything that I think is wrong with me, and you would agree. And then I would be open to hear the rest of it, or what you think of what's wrong. A lot of people can't do that. They think, well, no, you're hating me because of who I am. No, I'm just telling you the things that you asked me to tell you. That's it. These are self-acceptance things. Yes, this is the things I do, but are you going to take those steps to correct it? You want to be a different person? Then follow those steps. Is that admitting that you've done something wrong, or admitting things about yourself that are hard? Nobody likes to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So that term, it stuck with me, and that was the day that I no longer hated that woman, when it kind of hit me like, oh, God, this is what she's saying. Because we are our worst critics, but we are also ignore our criticism the best. So.
Yeah, I beat myself up on a regular basis. I am my worst critic.
I can believe that. Just knowing you like I know you. I can believe that totally.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that, though. But it's just the steps that you choose to take after that, the kind of person you want to be.
Right.
That's all the time we have for this episode. Please like and follow us on Facebook at Porch Matters Podcast. Please subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, or the platform of your choice so you don't miss an episode. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please rate the show and leave us a review if you have the time. Thank you very much for listening. And catch us next time, right here on Porch Matters.